Hello everyone. This week we're going to be talking about EQing or equalizing your system. Before we start, disclaimer, I am not a professional. I'm just a hobbyist that likes to do this kind of stuff and I just want to share what I learned and I know. Okay? Another thing, a very quick heads up, this is not a full tuning tutorial. A lot of people expect that EQ is basically the main part of tuning, and if you can do EQ, basically you know how to tune. So EQing is just a very, very small part of the whole tuning process. Because if we take a look at my Helix software, yeah, we're gonna be looking only at this part. So only at these sliders that go up and down, yeah. Tuning is this, 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 everything is tuning. Yeah, this is a very, very small. We're not gonna touch even this. Yeah, we're not gonna be talking about slopes, crossovers, nothing. Is just pure about EQing the system. So why do we need to EQ our system? You seen these? These are just frequency responses. If I take, for example, this, yeah, this is my mid-range. One of them is playing like this, and it's a mess. The purpose of EQing the system, is equalizing it, making sure that the output of the driver is kind of flat as you need it to be. We will see later on that it's not going to be flat, it's going to be a curve, but just in general, the total sum of all the drivers playing should equal to flat. And that's what we're going to try to do. So how do we know where to EQ2? What's our target? We have things which are called house curves. Yeah. So you've seen probably these, a lot of them. The most popular ones are like Harman, JBL. So basically, I don't know. Let's open this one. It's a curve that is based on research, what people like. Yeah, it's not accurate. House curve is not accurate. Accurate house curve is flat. It will be more like this. It's gonna be like totally flat. That would be a house, like accurate house curve. This is tuned to our preferences. So people, very smart people, did some research, and they found that people prefer a bit more bass in the frequency response, and depending on the taste, less or more top end. So you will see that these house curves are, all of them are very, very similar. It's just varying degree of how much bass and how much roll off or flatness you have in the top end. So why is this? Why is it not flat? Why flat is not pleasant, let's say? Yeah. If we take a look at these are called Fletcher-Munson equal loudness contours. There's a lot of curves, but let's take a look at just one. Let's concentrate on this one with 80 on it. Yeah. So this curve is, this is loudness, intensity, and this is the frequency at the bottom. So this curve says that it shows how humans perceive sound, how sensitive they are to different frequencies. Yeah. So this level of sound is like, this is the threshold of hearing. So that means that we're very, very sensitive to frequencies between, let's say, 1K and up to 5, 6K. This is the most sensitive for us. And we need much, much more level at lower end so we could start hearing it. So if we want to make a system, if we want to tune, EQ a system that would sound to us, to human beings, flat, that means equal loudness at every frequency, ideally we would want to tune to something similar to this. Yeah. So that means, if you can see, the top end is different and the bottom end is different. The top end is preference to every person. Some people like it a bit more sparkly, as they say. Some don't. Yeah, some are more sensitive. But the bottom end. So you will see that humans need more level at the bottom end compared to these frequencies to perceive the sound as the same, as equal. So if we take, for example, 1K here and compare it to 30 hertz, yeah, so between 1K and 30 hertz, that's almost 10 dB difference. That means that we need 10 dB more at the bottom end to perceive the sound that would be equal, yeah, and that's reflects in our house curves. I am using this Excel spreadsheet. It's called Jazzi's Tuning Companion. I'm gonna link, put in the description. You can find it. It's for free. You can download it and play with it. And basically, what it does, it gives you the house curves that you want. Here at the bottom, you can choose a house curve. It's flat, white ledge, half white ledge, JBL or Andes, and Jazzi's. Yeah, and you can do a custom one, like here on the side, whatever you prefer. So this Excel sheet is very useful to import target curves into REW, which we will be working with. So let's take, for example, half white ledge. All of them are very similar. Flat in the middle, more at the bottom end, and less at the top end. So if we choose a three-way system, three-way active, you can choose two-way if you want. There's other tools, but I don't use it. So if we choose three-way, we can choose our crossover frequencies and slopes we want for those particular target curves. So I just chose 70 between subwoofer and mid-bass, 320 between mid-bass and mid-range, and 2.4K between the mid-range and the tweeter. It's just my system, yeah. And what you can do this, and then you can export these curves into text files. Yes, it's gonna ask you where you want to save them. I just made myself a folder and I save them there for myself. So I already have them here saved, which are these. I renamed them to a bit shorter because it's a very long name. And then when you have these curves, you can import them into REW. How to do that? You can select all of them and just drag and drop. It's gonna be there. Or you can go to File, Import, Frequency Response. And it's just find it, and you can do it one by one. Yeah, and you can import it there. So if I deselect and select only those, so these are those curves from this, yeah, all those values that I am aiming for. So when we EQ, we aim for something. That's the target. Our target are these curves. I just missed subwoofer. There we go. So we aim to hit these curves with what our drivers play. So if we take, for example, mid-range, this is our target, and this is one of my mid-range, this is the other one of my mid-range. Yeah, it's totally a mess. So these mid-ranges, all of these drivers, I measured them without any filters, with no EQ, nothing. It's just raw how they play in the car. Yeah. Another thing to mention is when we're gonna do EQ, we assume that everything else previously was done correctly. That means your crossover settings, your slopes, your gain settings, and everything was done properly, and all the measurements are done how they're supposed to be done. I'm not going to cover the measurements because talking about measurements is going to be a different topic, and I hope I'm going to do it later on. So if you want to see that, just hold it in there. We're going to get there. But today we're going to do only the EQ part, which is, I think, is one of the most easiest parts in the whole tuning process. So how do we get from this to this target? REW has a very nice feature, which is EQ, automatic EQ. Okay, we will start from, let's say, tweeters. It's going to be easier. I'm going to do one tweeter, one mid, and maybe a sub, just because if we're going to do all of them, it's going to take us hours. So let's choose, let's choose one tweeter. Let's say this one, red one, and I'm going to go to EQ. Now, when you have this, it lets you add a house curve from REW. Okay, and it can be, let me just, oh, there we go. So I'm gonna do this 70. There we go. You can add any curve you want to. You can choose here, or what is better and what I do, I use these curves that were generated by this, because these are specific curves. Yeah, this, for example, the bottom end, the top end, sorry, it's not flat. Yeah, so in the auto EQ, it's gonna be flat, but I don't need flat, I need this. So how do I access that? What you need to do is you go to preferences, you choose house curve here, browse, and I'm gonna navigate myself to that folder where I saved all those house curves from the Excel file. I'm gonna choose tweeter. I'm gonna open it. Then when I close it and I go to EQ, if I choose full range speaker, that's the default house curve that you import into REW. This is gonna show me that what I imported, and it's gonna be perfect. So let's zoom in a bit to have a bit more clear view. There we go. Cool. Now, when I mentioned that I didn't put any crossovers on the drivers, the tweeters are exception. I put 2K filter on them, 2000 hertz, just to save them. Yeah. So let's assume this is 2K and we're happy with it and we're gonna use it. Now, what we can do and what we shouldn't do while EQing. If we take a look at this, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna remove this, so the same view. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the smoothing, because smoothing hides a lot from us, sometimes too much. So like this area, yeah, if I put 1/6, it's not that bad, yeah, it's like, it looks like what, maybe 3-4 dB dip. But if I remove the smoothing, that dip is much bigger. Yeah, and then you need to decide, do you want to EQ it or not? Now, another disclaimer, this is how I EQ my system. It's not the correct way, it's not the right way, it's not the way, it's my way. Yeah, it might be wrong, it probably is wrong, but I don't mind. You know, I don't care, because I do it for myself. I'm just experimenting and playing. And when you hear other people saying like, they have a thing that, oh, you cannot boost anything on while EQing. You always have to cut. You cannot boost, or you can boost only 3 dB, or you cannot cut more than 10 dB, because if you cut more than 10 dB, it's something is wrong with your system. My attitude towards it is just, fuck it. If I have DSP that can go from +6 to -15, I'm gonna use it. It's there. Of course, I'm going to contradict myself by saying that if you can do something, it doesn't mean that you should. So you're just using common sense, yeah? But me personally, I'm boosting a lot if I have to. So in this particular case, it's 5K, dip at 5K. Do I want to boost it? I'm gonna check it. I will boost it in the car. So this is a simulation in REW, so it's not gonna be very accurate. What I need to do is I need to test it in the car. In the car, if I see this, I boost that 5 dB. I would go to Helix, yeah, and I would put 5K, 5,000, and I'm gonna boost plus 5 and see what happens. So Q is a bit big. There we go. So I boosted it. If you see the old one versus the new one, it's fine. If I would see this result in the car, actually, I'm gonna boost it and it's fine. If I put this in Helix and it doesn't respond, that means that this is cancellation in the car. Well, all of this is cancellation, but some of them do not respond to boosting at all. If it doesn't respond to boosting, I'm not gonna boost. If it responds, I will. Now, some people will argue that at 5K, very narrow dip, you're not gonna hear it. Which is, yeah, probably I'm not gonna hear it, but if I can, why not? And again, some people again gonna say that, oh, if you're using too much EQ, you're gonna kill the system because it's gonna be lifeless and that kind of stuff. I'm not on that level yet, and I'm just playing. So what I would advise you to do as well is just play with this, because this it doesn't cost you anything. It's just time. You sit down and play. And with the values, so let's talk about the values. In Helix, you have EQ, which is fine, filter, or parametric. So if you choose parametric EQ, you have 30 bands. You can choose specific frequency that you want to choose, and you can change two parameters, which is gain and Q. So gain is basically tells you how much plus you want or minus you want to reduce or make the signal bigger. So if I take, for example, this, in some places I need to reduce it, in some places I would like to boost it. Yeah. How much? That's the Q. That's the gain. Now Q, the Q parameter is the width of how big of an area you would like to boost or cut. Yeah. So let's go to the extreme. Let's put 10 dB plus, and then let's play with the Q and see what happens. So if the Q is 1, it's super wide. So basically it gives that 10 dB to a very, very wide area. If I make the Q, let's say 12, that's a very, very, very narrow area. So it gives the boost only to this area. So this Q can be calculated. It's basically, you can calculate, for example, if you want to have a specific Q for this area, what you need to do is you need to take this frequency, which is 526, minus this 470, which is the width of this, and you divide it by the central frequency, which is 5K, and you would have a perfect Q to have it flat, let's say. Yeah. So in this particular case, because it's easier just to play with it. I need, okay, so how much I need? I need from 63 to this, let's say 6 dB gain. Yeah, and 15, 12. There we go, 12. So 6 and 12 is kind of perfect. It evens out. So you could calculate that as well. I just assumed. And this is why it's very good to play with this, because this, how much you want to cut or boost, and especially the Q, it comes by practice. Now, another thing, you could use the automatic settings on the REW. So it can calculate the EQ bands that you need, but for high frequencies, it doesn't do that. Look, if I choose, okay, for example, if I choose 2,000 to 20,000, and I ask REW to generate this, what it's gonna do? Oh, actually, it's working. Because I just tried it literally half an hour ago and it didn't do anything for me. So it's working. But again, playing with this is very, very nice. So let's get through this, what we did just now. What I did is, I told REW that, okay, I have this curve. I have this curve, which is not smooth. And I have this target curve that I want to match. Yeah. Now, the level at which I would like to match it, you can choose it. You can choose whatever you want. You can put, let's say, 73. You can put it higher. Yeah, it's gonna go like this. But then you will need to boost more. You need to boost this, this, all of this, this. You will need to boost it. If you put it too low, let's say 63, like this, you will need to cut everything. So you could potentially do 65, something like this, yeah? So you could potentially do this, cut all of this, and you wouldn't need to boost anything. But then you will need to boost the whole level because it's gonna be cut by a lot. And you're not gonna have any loudness in your system left because you're cutting too much. So this is the beauty, that you need to find like an average or whatever you think. You can ask REW to do it for you, calculate target level. Oh. Yeah, it's just sometimes it doesn't do that. Or you can just choose whatever you want. So if I'm gonna choose my target curve something like this, yeah, I will need to cut just this, boost this a bit, and cut those, and it's totally fine. You can play with this. One note that I would like to make is that when we are EQing, we need to EQ a bit more than from, let's say, crossover point, which is in my particular case 2.4. More than this to this. What we need to do is we need to EQ the whole crossover region, which is, if we're using 24 dB slope, we need to EQ 24 dB down. So if we have, let's say here, 65, we need to EQ it down to 40 basically. We need to make sure that this is fine. Because if we don't do this, then the slope is not going to be right. And I was talking about slopes in the previous video about phase issues. Slopes have to be correct. So here in filter tasks, we are choosing from when till when we need to EQ the frequency. So I'm gonna do from, because this is kind of not bad, I'm gonna choose, let's say, from here, which is 1.5, 1500 up to 20k. Okay, so I want the automatic EQ to EQ all of this down to here, which will make sure that my slope is fine. Then individual max boost. This is how much you would like REW to boost for one particular EQ band. So since my helix can boost up to 6, I'm going to choose that as 6. And max overall boost is how much all of it can be boosted, which doesn't really matter for me, so it's 5. Flatness is how flat you want it. The lowest, always better. It's going to give you more EQ bands, but it's fine. We have 30, so it's fine. So let's match it again. Generates all those bands. There we go. So I'm going to remove this one, and this is my predicted. And it's amazing, to be honest. If I would like to, I could, again, just remove this a bit, that, but this is very, very nice. This is amazing. So now, what do we do now with this? If you do this in the car, what you need to do is you save filter coefficients to file. No? Export filter settings as text. So this is just a note, so I would put, which one was it, left or right? Left tweet. That's my note. I'm going to save it on anywhere. Left tweet EQ. And I'm going to save it. Then I would go here. I'm going to choose left tweeter. Right click on it. And then you do load import file. You're going to choose that wherever it was. If I'm going to find it now. Desktop audio. And I will need to change this to txt. So REW generic EQ file. And it will be left tweeter EQ, the one that I generated. And open it. And I'm going to press, it says import EQ. Okay. And it's basically imported everything for me. All those numbers that are here, it does it automatically. You could do it manually. That's what I did actually, to be honest. Before I knew about that import function, I did this manually. Enter everything manually. Yeah. And you can adjust. And then when you do this, when you put this into Helix, you take another measurement. And what you get is, I'm going to do generate measurement from predicted. So it's the same as taking another measurement. It is this one, the orange one. Now I'm going to put the smoothing back on and see the difference. Cool. So this was my tweeter, the red one. It was like this before EQ. Now after EQ, with 1/6 smoothing, is like this, which is pretty flat, no? According to my house curve. Cool. So we did one tweeter. Now very quickly, let's do one mid-range just for fun. We're not going to do everything. Let's choose mid-range left. And there we go. So this is the target curve. Now I need to see what's actually happening there. Okay, so it's a bit too low. So let's lift it up. 70? There we go, something like this. Or even more. So now, you see this. This response, if I'm going to show it here as well, mid-range. Okay, so what is what? Yeah, so this is a big massive dip. Or is it? Is it a dip or is this a boost? Because remember, when you put speaker in a car, some frequencies get boosted like acoustically. Yeah, so it's like a horn. If you put a mid or a tweet in a pillar or in the dash in the corner, the car itself acts like a horn and it amplifies the sound. So my guess is This is just natural amplification and it's just a boost. And my normal response would be at about 67, 68 dB, 69 dB, which is this. Yeah, this is my normal response. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check this section. Is it deep or is it not? I'm gonna remove the smoothing. Bam. Aha. So it is quite deep. These two is probably cancellations. So what I'm gonna do, because what I could do, I could aim much higher. Let's just do this. I could potentially aim at, sorry, 73. At this, but this is gonna be a bit too much to boost, and I don't want this. So let's keep it at 70, even a bit less, maybe 68. 69. There we go. Let's keep it like this. And now all of that on the sides, we need to remove it. So this doesn't have any crossovers on it. We're gonna add crossovers. I'm gonna add a crossover link with Riley at 300, yeah, or a bit more. Yeah, 300 sounds fine. Because again, as I mentioned with the tweeter, you need to EQ not the top one, not only the top, but the sides as well. If I'm gonna put a crossover a bit higher, like 350, yeah, see this, the bottom on the left side, I will need to boost it with EQ because it's not gonna blend well with the mid bass, and it's gonna be phase issues. I don't want that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep it at 320, 330. And if you notice that, actually 320 looks better. There we go. Sometimes these crossovers that we use, they're not the same that these, because these are theoretical ones, yeah, and those are practical, actual crossovers. So I think it's going to be more noticeable with this one. Let's put a low pass. I think it was Riley 4, 2, 4. I'm going to put a bit higher, 2, 5. There we go, just to lift it a bit. Sometimes these crossovers do not correspond because there's a difference between electrical crossover and acoustical crossover. And I'm planning to do another video about those crossovers. Okay, so I have this. Now let's try if REW is going to do its magic. I'm going to choose again 24 dB down, 67, 64, so down to 40. It's going to be too much. So this is fine. Okay. So basically it's 1 octave plus and minus from your crossover point. So if you have crossover point at 320 in my case, a full octave down is gonna be 160. So I'm gonna put a bit higher, let's say 200, because it does look quite nice up to 200. Actually, I'm gonna put 160 because why not? And if I have on this side crossover 2.4, I need to put 5K. Oh, sorry. 5,000 hertz, because I want it to EQ down to here, to this point. Because if I'm gonna EQ only the top, only here, all the stuff that is here is gonna impact everything. Okay, so let's take a look like this. There we go. See this? If I would EQ it from here and leave this, all of this is gonna add to the tweeter, and there's gonna be a little bump there, which I don't want. I want it flat. So let's see if it's gonna do its magic. See, this time it didn't work. So that's exactly what I mean. Sometimes, I don't know, maybe I have some settings wrong. I put from 10. 160 to 5K. Let's try again. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes it doesn't work for me. With the tweeter, it worked. With the subwoofer, it works. For this, it didn't work. You know, sometimes it does. So that's even better. What we're going to do is we're going to do everything manually, which is amazing. I love this because it's practice. Yeah. Okay, so what are we doing here? I'm going to tackle this first. Again, I would check it in the car if it responds or not to boosting. If it doesn't respond to boosting in the car, I'm not going to boost. But if it does, it does. So let's assume that this time, because on the tweet it did respond, let's assume on this time that it didn't respond. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So now I'm going to attack all these peaks that are on the top. Let's go for this one. Frequency is 1840. I'm going to put 1840. For now, I'm going to put 0. Okay, so how much I want to cut it? I want to cut it from here down to here, which is 10 dB. Yeah, 75, 65. Let's put minus 10. Now it cut everything for me because the Q is very, very wide. It affects a big, big area. So Q, I'm going to increase it to 8. And it's much, much, much better, as you can see. Yeah? I'm going to play with the frequency. Let's put 19. There we go. You see how it shifted? That frequency just bam went there. 1850. Yeah. See, it went back, and it's spot on this thing. So this one, 1173. 1173. Okay. I'm gonna put to 0 for now. Okay, is as well 10 dB. Let's do minus 10. Okay, let's play with the Q. Let's make it a bit smaller. 5. Not bad. Let's put 6. Okay, it's gonna go up. If I put 4, okay, it takes a bit more. Okay, I'm happy with this. I can boost this as well a bit, tiny bit, just to bring it up. Okay, now this big massive peak, I could aim here. I'm gonna aim a bit to the side here, so it's gonna bring all from here to here, all of this big one. So let's aim somewhere in the middle. 474. Oh, it's perfect. 480. Let's leave it there. Let's cut another 10. Minus 10. Okay. And the Q, let's make it smaller. Let's say 4. Okay. A bit more. 3. Okay. 2. See? Cuts everything, but a bit too much. I'm not happy with that. 3.5. Yeah, something similar like that. Perfect. So this point is back. Now another EQ here. 372. 372. Oh, with a cut of 7 dB and Q of, let's put a bit smaller. What happens? There we go. 6. No. There we go. Looks much better. Now this one, 270. 270 minus 5. I just like to keep the numbers rounded. I don't know why, it's just my thing. There we go. Okay, looks good. Okay, looks good. A bit more. Maybe minus 6. There we go. Much, much, much better. Now this one that's left. 565. 565. I'm gonna cut maybe just 4. And with the Q a bit wide, 3, let's say. No, too much. Too little. 6. No. 5. Cool. Happy with that. Now this, I'm gonna boost this a bit because it's a bit too low. So these two are like dips caused by cancellations, but if it's not gonna boost, again, if it's not gonna boost in the car, it's not gonna boost. If it will boost, it's gonna be fine. So let's try 900 plus 3 with a Q of 5. There we go. And again, we could remove this. If we would go to the sides, I would need to remove this a bit. Actually, let's remove this one just for fun. 3, 4. 3, 4. I'm gonna remove with -3, let's say. 3 dB with the Q quite narrow, 8. Okay, a bit 6. There we go. 7. And a bit more, let's say 5 dB. Minus, sorry. There we go. See? That's great. Cool? Cool. So again, you could remove this. You could remove this. You could boost this a bit. And it just takes time. That's all. So I'm happy with this. What I'm going to do now is, again, export it as text, import into Helix, take another measurement, and what you would get is this measurement, ideally. If not, you would need to adjust a few things. So what do we get? If I'm gonna add smoothing, it's not that bad. See? It's not perfect, but again, it's just playing with this. We just need to probably lift it a bit higher. So if I'm gonna lift it, which one is it? Mid left, let's say 2 dB plus. Oh, this one, 2 dB plus, too much, just 1 dB. There we go, much better. And again, you could play with this. You could increase this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. So my approach to this is, when I am EQing, I'm attacking the big dips first. If I have big massive dips, I'm gonna try to boost them and see if they boost. If they boost, perfect. If they don't boost, I'm gonna leave it as this and bring the target line a bit down. Then I will EQ with no smoothing, so I can respond to the actual exact frequency where it is, because you can zoom in as deep as you want, as much as you want. And after that, when I'm done with the first one, then I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna EQ this with the 1/6 smoothing. So for example, I'm gonna take this 729, I'm gonna cut 3 dB with a Q of 8. I'm gonna try boosting this by 2 dB, cutting this by 2 dB, boosting this by 1.5 dB maybe, and just playing as much as you want. And you can get whatever you want, you know. So we have mid and we have the tweeter. Where was it? I lost it. Probably I didn't save it. Anyway, so yeah, and you do this with every single driver. So now we have, I don't know, probably almost an hour in this video, and I did only 2 drivers and they're not perfect. So you can imagine how long it will last to do the whole system if you're not experienced like me. I'm not experienced. Yeah, that's why it takes ages for me. If you would be experienced, it's just bish bash bosh, as somebody says, and it will be much easier. So it takes long time. Now a little bit about boosting. If we take a look at this, yeah, so this is my just random tune, and you can see some frequencies are boosted like +5, +5. If I take this one, look, plus, 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 plus. But what you need to look at is the overall boost, how much everything is boosted. So if I take this H from mid, H is this line, I don't know what color is this, pinkish, whatever. So if you can see this pinkish color, yeah, this is my 0 dB. So that means that with all of these boosts, I have only here a little tip, which is boosted maybe 3 dB, and everything else is under 0, which is fine. So you achieve this by playing with the levels and with other bands, because remember that you are cutting with other bands much more than you're boosting, because this one cut or one boost doesn't affect a very small area. If the Q is low, that means the cut is wide. It affects a big area. Yeah. And in my whole tune, as you can see, I have here, which is front mid bass boosted a bit, like 3 or 4 dB here. Then I have mid ranges, a tiny bit here, a tiny bit here, and the tweeters. So this one is a bit off axis that I need to boost the top end quite a lot. And as you can see, with all the individual boosts that I did, it's not that much. So if I set my gains with 5 dB headroom, I'm not gonna hit that line. I'm not gonna hit it. I'm not gonna overdrive the drivers, and it's still gonna be fine. So that's what I mean. Don't be afraid of boosting. If you need to boost, boost it. Just do it sensible. Double check after, like this. Now I'm just double checking and everything is fine. If I'm gonna reduce my gain a tiny little bit, it's gonna be fine, and I'm not gonna overdrive anything. So now let's talk about the whole overall target curve. Let's assume that I tuned everything and all of my drivers add up and my total curve is like this. Let's assume this. People say tune it flat, EQ it flat, and then adjust to your liking. So what is the liking? If you EQ everything flat, you can adjust. If you take, for example, old head units or factory head units where you have 3 bands of EQ, let's say, which is bass, mid, and treble, and you can do like ±5 or whatever. Yeah. So if you EQ everything flat, you can adjust this area, you can adjust this area, and you can adjust this area with just a few touches. So for example, if you have everything tuned like this and you feel that, okay, the top end is not enough for me, I cannot hear the little cymbals or whatever, I need a bit more. So what you do on your head unit or whatever, you do +1, +2 on the treble, and it's gonna be flat and it's gonna be fine. If you're listening to heavy metal or rock music or whatever, and the guitars are quite harsh, the guitars are somewhere in the middle, like in, the vocals as well. So probably you're gonna do -1 or -2 there, just to bring it a bit down, so those won't feel as harsh. If you feel that you have a bit too much bass, I don't know who does that, but if you feel that I have too much bass, you can remove that as well, 1 or 2. So what I would advise is use those tiny adjustments in the area which is above, let's say, I don't know, 300 hertz probably, like the mid and the treble, because if you're gonna try to boost the bottom end, the sub's gonna suffer, because usually the subs are tuned in a way that they have at their maximum output, unless you have, I don't know, 5K and two 12s or two 15s or whatever. I just have a single 12. Yeah. So this is tuning according to preference to what you want. If you want to do this in Helix, you can do that as well. You just take one band, do a very, very wide Q, one or probably half, and just bring it down -3. Yeah. And all of this, as you see, it just went down by 3 dB, basically all of it. You can do that on both drivers, of course. You choose both drivers and do it at the same time. And you can set different preferences. Yeah. So this is tuning to your preference. And I'm gonna repeat myself again. I am just an amateur. I'm not a professional, and this is how I do my system. Again, I'm not saying it's the correct way. I'm not saying it's the right way. It's just how I'm doing it. If you learn something from this, happy days. I'm happy about it. If not, probably you know more than I do. So again, happy days as well. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope I'm going to see you next week.